Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. This is the interview you've all been waiting for. I know I've been eagerly anticipating it. We're delighted to welcome to Salam Media on News and Views Dr. Naledi Pandor, former International Relations Minister. She needs no introduction, and now CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Dr. Pandor, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Salam Media. We're very, very pleased to have you with us. I have to tell you that a friend yesterday from Algiers texted me to say she's my hero. Well, you're definitely mine as well.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much for those kind remarks. I'm chair of the Nelson Mandela Foundation board. The CEO is Dr. Buthelezi.
Sorry about that. I think my
That's fine.
producer got that wrong. Thank you once again for being with us, Dr. Pandor. We have a few things I'd like to cover in this short time we have together. So let's kick off. As the former foreign minister, I'm just going to say foreign minister, it's easier. What are your thoughts now about South Africa's role on the global stage, on its diplomacy, its international partnerships, and its evolving positions in multilateral spaces like the G20 and BRICS, but also within the context of the new Trump administration and the shifts we've seen in the global north, particularly since last week's trip by Mr. Zelensky to the White House?
I think that the complex and very toxic geopolitical environment has become even more challenging with the inauguration of the President of the United States of America. And for me, I think South Africa needs to exhibit the highest levels of fortitude, of moral courage in foreign policy, and should not retreat from the excellent values and principles illustrated by South Africa's support for human rights and freedoms for all people. So it's an environment in which our country and the continent stand challenged, but they've got to hold the ground because I believe it is a test for the South. Do we cave in and become just persons or countries that obey what is laid out, particularly from the United States of America? Or do we stand for that which we believe in? And as the South begin to set a new paradigm in foreign policy, a paradigm where justice, freedom, human rights, and dignity are upheld and strongly supported, international law is promoted, and multilateralism and global cooperation is the manner of international engagement. That, for me, is what is confronting our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation and our President Ramaphosa, and his government.
Well, Dr. Pandor, before we do anything else, my producer has just let me know to ask you to please tilt your screen forward a little bit so that we have a better view of your face. Thank you. Thanks. That's lovely. Thank you. On the issue of multilateralism, on the issue of accountability under international law, you will forever be remembered around the globe as the minister under whom South Africa brought the ICJ genocide case against Israel. Now, we've seen the ICJ issue interim judgments, give orders to Israel, and those have been ignored in the breach rather than anything else. Israel has been behaving with absolute impunity, and thus far, for over a year now, since the first judgment, has gotten away with this. What does this say for the role, for the future role of international law, particularly international humanitarian law, and the law on serious crimes such as crimes against humanity and genocide, if one member of the United Nations system, of the multilateral system, is allowed to get away with such impunity?
Well, I think, firstly, this is not the first time that Israel has ignored and breached international law. It has been doing so for over 7 decades. But it is the first time that they have been brought with an accusation of committing genocide
Mm-hmm.
before the International Court of Justice. And this case has been taken seriously to the degree that Israel, in the first hearing that was held on the provisional measures, had to make an attempt, which patently failed, to defend its actions. And
Mm-hmm.
you could see from their demeanor, from the contributions that they made, that clearly they were unable to uphold any challenge to the charge that had been put forward by South Africa. I think what we should be very careful of as the international community is a feeling that the action hasn't achieved enough. And because of that, we must retreat. I
Mm-hmm.
think we must continue with the case. We have to have the
Absolutely.
hearing on the merits. We must present the evidence. It's the first time this has been done. And I am convinced by the onslaught I face daily of posts of all insults and so on, that they're feeling the pinch of this
Yes.
action, not just by South Africa, but many other countries in the global community. The action by South Africa in leading the formation of a group of countries that have made public commitment through their presidents to international law, to the
Mm-hmm.
International Criminal Court, is a major step forward. And the fact that there are arrest warrants out
At the
for the
ICC,
Prime
indeed.
Minister of Israel. So do
Indeed.
not cause our, need for greater action, need for arrest to undermine what has been done. It's extremely important, and I am sure that leaders who are now acting against South Africa are feeling the pain of this action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are wise words indeed, and precisely why we love hearing you talk, Dr. Pandor. I want to move on a little bit to your new role in the Nelson Mandela Foundation as its the board chairperson, what this new chapter means for you, and how you see the foundation's role in shaping dialogue on peace, on justice, on leadership, etc.
Well, Mr. Mandela was a person who wished to draw nations together, who believed in resolving conflict through non armed engagement, through peaceful negotiation and engagement. And this is something I would like to see the foundation play a greater role in. I think to some degree over the years, the idea of peace and security has been somewhat underplayed by the
Uh-huh.
foundation. And it is something that we are now beginning to insert into
Uh-huh.
our program of work, because this was the essence of the man, drawing
Right.
people together, helping those who are in conflict to arrive at a conclusion that it is possible for persons with totally different opinions politically to come
Mm-hmm.
together and work to form a nation. And this is some of the work I hope we will contribute. We also will be focusing much more on issues of social justice. So, how
Mm-hmm.
can we help ensure that South Africans enjoy all the benefits that are set out in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights? As an actor outside government, what
Mm-hmm.
role could we play? How
Yes.
do we prepare the next rung of leadership for
Mm-hmm.
South Africa and Africa? We have a
Absolutely.
huge population of young people. We would like them to do better than we have done when they assume leadership. So we must play a role in training that new group of African leaders.
That sounds very exciting indeed. And indeed, I can't wait to see who your Nelson Mandela lecture uh, keynote is going to be this year, because I'm a fan of those lectures, or I used to be. I haven't been to the last couple ones, and I'm looking forward to the new one this year. this year under your leadership. The other thing that I really wanted to touch on with you is when you see a role for yourself going forward from having been in government. And somebody said to me the other day, I was talking to Andrew Feinstein. He had mentioned in a previous interview that the United States, that South Africa, sorry, moved from being an autocratic, uh, you know, fundamentalist state to being a functional democracy. And despite the challenges we still have, we are indeed a functional democracy. But I said to him that the US seems to be moving in the other direction from being a fairly functional democracy, at least in my childhood, to now being a technocratic oligarchy and very much an autocracy. How do you see South Africa-US relations in the light of that, and in the light of Mr. Trump's cutting of aid, in the light of his offer to white farmers to come to the US as refugees? Quite a bizarre notion. How do you see US South Africa relations shaping up in the second Trump presidency and the second Ramaphosa presidency?
Well, I think that it's going to be a challenge for our country. But the United States, as the largest economy in the world, is an important trade partner for us. Government politically cannot afford to lose jobs or investments by businesses. So you've got to, be balanced in your
Uh-huh.
approach. And my view is we must continue the diplomatic effort. But I also think, as I said, we hold a unique place in the world of a moral
Mm-hmm.
authority on foreign engagement and foreign policy. We need to talk more about our values, about our principles. I think the fact that AfriForum could succeed in misleading the government of the United States of America means our communication is probably not up to the mark that it should be. So, what
Mm-hmm.
we need to do is communicate the message, tell the story of South Africa, tell them our aspirations, the kind of society we're trying to build, why we are making efforts to transform land ownership, economic engagement and ownership, and so on. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we can be challenged because a country that had all those decades of slavery over Africans that they trafficked from Africa cannot
Mm-hmm.
refuse to understand our story and the transformative intentions that we have as a country.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's untenable that we still have the kind of imbalance between ownership 30 years on that we had in 1994. Um,
Mm.
on the issue of the US, before I let that one go, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and ask, is there any way we can strip Elon Musk of his citizenship, South African citizenship? Because really, I don't think the man deserves to be a citizen of a country whose principles are based around Ubuntu. Maybe we can teach the US some Ubuntu. Hopefully we can. But seriously, can we please strip him of citizenship?
Well, I think, when people act in a negative fashion, their greatest hope is you will act in similar fashion. And so you deny them that pleasure by actually being far more astute than they are at the practice of diplomacy. So, what I would hope South Africans would do is that many of them love this thing called X. We think they could use more of their tweeting to indicate their displeasure. Many have done so, I'm told, by my children.
Mhm.
Um, and we, need to continue that, but encourage more and more, and indicate, that actually Mr. Musk, who has not lived in our country, does not understand, who we are attempting to be. We're not a negative force in the world. We don't have an intention of genocide. And he actually is engaged with genocidists. We're not.
Uh-huh.
And I just think a few truths are necessary. And, we're going to build our nation ourselves, and even our fellow citizens who are Afrikaans speaking, many
Mhm.
of whom, by the way, the majority are Black,
Mhm.
uh, um, do not have a wish to be associated with a visa or residence in
Mhm.
another country. They're
And
quite happy where they are.
as they should be. As I said, we are the nation of Ubuntu. We perhaps lost sight of that during the state capture years, but hopefully we're regaining it.
Mhm.
But we do need to be fairer to the majority of our people in order to regain that. Dr. Pandor, do you think that the the policy of the US as it's currently being articulated towards South Africa is in any way influenced by South Africa's stance on Israel and even by South Africa's stance on Rwanda and the recent spat between President Ramaphosa and President Kagame of Rwanda?
I'm very wary of commenting on foreign policy because I'm no longer minister.
Sure.
As an individual South African, let me say, I do think it has a very strong attachment
Hmm.
to the case we've brought uh, at the ICJ. I believe it's a strong part of the
Hmm.
antipathy towards South Africa. And then also the misrepresentations that have been
Hmm.
made about South Africa to various leaders in the
Hmm.
United States of America. And of course, the fear of the principled position of South Africa on issues of race and many other aspects of discrimination. It's fairly scary to have a country right at the bottom rung of the continent of Africa having the level of values, principles, and
Hmm.
moral astuteness on human rights that South Africa has. And that can be quite a frightening thing. And when you're losing ground as a political and moral authority, you then become vicious in
Hmm.
targeting those who pose an alternative to you.
Hmm. That's so very true. On that issue of holding the moral high ground and maintaining it, you mentioned last year while you were still minister that South Africa would actually stop coal exports to Israel. That hasn't been done yet. BDS South Africa has asked various mining companies to provide figures of what they export to them, but they haven't done so. And some have postulated that that is because of opposition both within the government of national unity. Some of the partners are very neoliberal there, but also that there are links to senior political figures within the ANC itself, in not excluding the president's brother-in-law of African Rainbow Minerals.
Well, I don't know the truth of those links, and I never cast aspersions unless I have the facts. Um, I said that I believe South Africa has to take more actions
Hmm.
in the sanctions and boycott domain. I don't believe we've done enough yet.
Yes.
But on the stopping of coal exports, I was rather more careful than
Hmm.
you suggest, in
Yes.
that it is not the government that exports, it is the
Understood.
private sector. And in South Africa, the government does not direct the private sector, as happens in many countries in the world. So I would have chosen my words with care because
Yes.
I know that it is the private sector. And so perhaps I would have suggested that the unions could and should do more, as NUMSA has been trying, but we need a broader coordination by the trade union sector, as
Hmm.
we had in the
Yes.
anti apartheid movement. This
Yes.
is what I've called for, and I've been repeating this message in many, many parts of the world, because I think that aspect of the international solidarity, the one of sanctions, of
Hmm.
boycott, is not gaining sufficient traction
Yes.
to have an impact. and we need greater work on that. I'm glad to see a number of global coalitions beginning to surface, and I
Yes.
think there is a realization that we need much more concerted, coordinated action. And we are, I've been meeting various organizations asking me to come and speak about this matter. And
Uh-huh.
I am glad that there is the emergence of such a perspective.
As am I. Hold that thought, please, Dr. Pandor. We need to pay some bills and we'll be back with you within a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
This Ramadan, your zakah and sadaqah are more than charity. They are a duty, a lifeline to many, and your path to endless reward. Be the change with Muslim hands and transform lives across the globe. Together, we can feed the hungry in South Africa and beyond, provide clean water to communities in the most need, empower women with sustainable opportunities across 13 countries, and offer vital relief to families suffering from the conflict in Gaza, Yemen, and Kashmir. This Ramadan, make your generosity count. Be the change today. Visit muslimhands.org.za or call 021 633 6413 to donate today.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
This Ramadan, please consider donating to the Islamic Dawah movement. For over 45 years, IREM has built over 80 masjids and distributed more than 160,000 Qurans in 8 local languages. IREM has installed over 250 boreholes and water wells. Over 1,000 children are fed daily, building strong Muslim communities in disadvantaged areas. Donate.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this.
Welcome back, dear audience of Salam Media, to our conversation with Dr. Naledi Pandor. Do be reminded that this hour from 9 to 10 on Salam Media is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. Dr. Pandor, we were talking about the need to push for more concerted boycott sanctions, etc. And I would posit, particularly when it comes to the private sector and putting pressure on them through the unions and citizens, etc., I would posit that that not only applies to Israel, but also to the ongoing conflicts in places like Rwanda and Sudan, where we know that there are South African companies invested. We know that 18 of our peacekeepers were recently killed in the Eastern DRC in the conflict there. And of course, many civilians have lost their lives. Hundreds of thousands have actually been displaced over the years. And that is, it's the central battleground for what had previously been called some years ago Africa's World War. And we certainly don't want a recurrence of that. So we need to actually pressure our companies to be more socially conscious in the decisions and the business decisions they make, particularly when it comes to mining in places like the DRC and trading, the trading partners they ally with, the children that some of them still employ in the mines, etc. So I just wanted to add that dimension because I think it is an important dimension.
No, I agree with you fully. But I just want to point out that as Minister of International Relations, I was aware fully of South African companies and their investments on the African continent. And I can confirm I was very impressed at the social responsibility investments that they were making in the countries in which they are doing business. So South African companies have been exemplary. But of course, more should be done. There's more concern about external players whose primary interest is the mineral resources of those countries and not boosting economic growth or creating entrepreneurial opportunity. It's those external players that I think we should be more concerned about. And you and those listening in would be aware, I have raised this matter of a stronger role for the United Nations in guarding the interests of humanity, in enforcing international law. And as we imagine UN reform, I think this issue of a stronger enforcement capability is something that we've got to, give more and more attention to, because who is there to protect the ordinary civilian, the ordinary man and woman? And I think
Absolutely.
it is the multilateral body that we should empower and give the ability of enforcement which it currently lacks. And that means, of course, reform of the Security Council, of decision making, and the force and effect of the General Assembly. Great deal of work to be done. And I wish our African Union membership would take this work very, very urgently into the stage of what we call text-based negotiations, so that we see real transformative change in the United Nations and a huge improvement in its ability to protect universal rights.
Absolutely. It's, the United Nations has written and said a lot on the responsibility to protect, and yet it lacks the teeth to actually do so in its current formation. So I do believe that UNSC reform is urgently, urgently needed. And I look forward to your participation in that as well. Dr. Pandor, one last question for you about, multilateral relations, etc., because this has been bothering me a little bit since I spoke to Azad Issa earlier this week on his new book, Hostile Homelands, which basically talks about the new alliance, although it's not that new, between Israel and India, and he compares two occupations, two partitions, and the military-industrial complex. And I think that, South Africa's own history with India has really been a very close one since 1994, with various various multilateral forums, the non-aligned movement, now G20 and BRICS, etc., but also on a one-to-one bilateral level. But developments in India have been of concern, to say the least, and particularly this partnership, this alliance with Israel on intelligence, surveillance, and military capability sharing is of huge concern, I think. During your tenure as foreign minister, were you aware of this, and did you address it in any way? Is South Africa prepared to address it in any way?
I think South Africa certainly would engage as bilateral partner, but also all the members within BRICS, so that we have one position on this important matter. I think with respect to Brazil, we have shared thinking. On India, really some worrying signs, as you've pointed out. And with respect to Russia, not always centered on the Palestinian cause for freedom, given traditional relationships and
Mm.
the post-Second World War arrangements. So I think there's work to be done. As BRICS grows, there's an opportunity to begin to put on the center of the discussion table these important issues of justice, freedom, and human rights. They haven't enjoyed sufficient currency, and I think it's something that will emerge as BRICS matures. We were able 2 years ago, when South Africa hosted BRICS, to have a very significant paragraph in the final declaration on
Yes,
support for the Palestinian cause. It was the
yes,
first time that we reached consensus on this matter. So I believe the entry of other countries into BRICS and the growth that we've seen in a very short time promises a shift that will be a welcome shift. With respect to India, yes, many worrying signs. The Islamophobia that has
hmm
developed in that country, for example, is most unusual for the India that we've always known. So
hmm
we are hoping that there will be a course correction in the future. It is of great concern that this country, that had been respected as one of the most significant democracies of the South, has now moved in a direction that contradicts all that history, the role of
hmm
Mahatma, and so on. So we're
yes,
hoping that as young people emerge, as new leaders emerge, that we will see a return politically to the India that we knew and to a focus on issues of Kashmir, of autonomy and respect for human rights.
indeed. And I think, Azad pointed to, as far back as the war on terror, India's alignment with the Western coalition and with Israel in helping to criminalize the Muslim body. It's worrying, to say the least, and it's something we need to keep an eye on. Dr. Pandor, I'd like to now take you into the personal realm a little bit more before we close. What are your personal reflections on Ramadan, on leadership? How has your faith and your personal values influenced your approach to governance, to diplomacy, to service?
Well, I think that we are fortunate as Muslims in that our religion provides us with a guide on how we should attempt to live our lives. And
Mhm.
so I have, through embracing Islam, learned a great deal about my own agency in the way in which I conduct myself and live my life. There are many difficult situations one may be confronted with. There are, evil temptations. But if you try to remain true to the essence of Islam, I believe you can survive the most trying situations. I also believe that Ramadan is a wonderful means of humbling us, of making us recall others, but also it draws us together. It's a time in which I have opportunity to be with members of the family that I
Mhm.
might not have seen for several months. Suddenly, iftar becomes so important, or everybody around the table, at Seri time. So it has wonderful lessons and provides, I think, a moral guide, and also a way, of living, a rootedness in family, a rootedness in community. It's for me a shared religion, one in which you feel so connected, to so many other people, and there's this coming together in a rather fascinating way. So I think having that beauty does pose a challenge to us to help the world understand our religion, and also for us to combat those who have allowed others to define us as evil, as violent, and so on. Because there are problems, we shouldn't, pretend that there aren't. But we have a duty to really work on all those fronts to ensure that there is understanding and acceptance.
Absolutely. Subhanallah. Thank you so much for that. You've encapsulated precisely why I was an activist from my school days and why I still think of myself as an activist. And I think, you really in embodying those Islamic values on all those fronts, especially the negative ones, there can be no real pushback that hurts you, because when you embody Islamic values, you embody pure love, really.
Mm.
And if you love your creator and you love your fellow man, then my work has been largely focused on the African continent. Of course, I'm passionate about Palestine, particularly since having visited there, but also about Sudan. It's very, very close to my heart. So is the DRC, Liberia, other places on the continent. And it is my prayer this Ramadan that our Creator brings some relief to the many, many people of those countries, including, as I said, Palestine, and including even Ukraine and other hotspots around the world, Assam in India, etc. But I love the way you've encapsulated that if we meet violence, if we meet various forms of evil, would that core value that Islam embodies of love, of submission to the Creator, that they can't really touch us. And I think that is at the heart of the Palestinian Sumud, this resistance of theirs that unfortunately has become normalized.
It's so sad, but one can't help but really thank the Creator for their demeanor, for the resilience of the Palestinian people. And I think the primary driver for them is faith. You cannot behave in the way that they do. You cannot believe that freedom will come as they do if you do not have faith.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a wonderful note to end on. Dr. Pandor, my mother is late, but she would be very proud of me today because she was a huge fan of yours. And she's also from Dundee, by the way. So thank you once again for having this conversation with us. It's been an absolute privilege. I was hoping to have it last year and didn't get to it, but I'm very, very glad we've had this opportunity. Thank you for your insights, both personal and political, and for the future of our country and our communities across Africa and the world. Thank you for being you. You are my hero.
Thank you. That's so kind of you. Thank you very, very much. I'm just an ordinary mum and grandmother. But thank you. So kind of you to say so. And really, Jazakallah to Salam Media for this opportunity and for the work that you are doing in that area. Always I'm concerned about of communication. We need more of such because our story has been twisted and, misled. We've, been misrepresented. And it is only through the work you are doing that we will begin, to really come to learn the truth. So I thank you all and your team, your colleagues for the work that you do, and greater strength to you all, and Ramadan Mubarak to all who tune in.
Ramadan Kareem to you as well. Jazakallah khair once more. By the way, I'm just a temporary guest host here, so this is not my day job, but it's been a privilege to do this with the team at Salam Media. I thank them as well. And I thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for making this time. I hope it is not the last engagement we have. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. Thank you.